Yeah, I think now it is.
11.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Now it is. ನೀವು ತುಂಬಾ ಉದ್ದ ಇದ್ರು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಇಷ್ಟು ಮಾತ್ರ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. Yeah, okay, fine. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Good morning to all. Am I audible?
Good morning, madam.
Good morning, madam.
Ma'am.
Good morning, madam.
Good morning.
Good morning, madam.
Nice to be with
Good morning.
you.
Good evening, ma'am.
It would have been nice had we been able to be together. I mean, have a real class in the sense this is virtual class. But actually, to be very frank with you, I have actually taken. What to say? Like I'm not from history, but I did study some history in graduation, and I don't claim to be specialist in history. Also you are experts in history and you have been studying and you are teaching. So this is actually I'm taking a dare step actually to talk to you. So if there are any mistakes or please point out, and you can we will keep some time for interaction. I don't want this only to be one-sided thing. So, and at the same time, why I have accepted this lecture is mainly because I want to put in your mind the thinking of thinking out of the box, thinking in a different way, thinking how we can bring in other disciplines into your own research, and how the concepts in other disciplines can be integrated with the concepts or techniques that you are using in your research, historical research or historiography. So with that idea, actually I joined, and I have been actually addressing this because you are all very young and you still have got many more years of research, many more years of service, and you know you will be contributing a lot to research. And apart from that, the situations are different. The situations in which we started our research and the situations in which you are starting your research are entirely different. So now you have technology support, and you have access to resources much easier. So what is important is only your interest in contributing something new from your perspective. So that is what I want to put in your head, and hopefully hope I'll be able to do some justice. So the topic is multidisciplinary approach to historical research. So I have divided my lecture into talking about what is multidisciplinary research and how it is different from transdisciplinary research and other types of research. And then I will come to the advantages and disadvantages and the drivers for multidisciplinary research. Then I will also apply it to little bit to your historiography. I hope that I will be able to do justice. So what is research? I don't want to spend too much time on this, but at the same time I just want to spend some time, because most of the time we think that we know the words, we know the concept, but we precisely don't know. That is why I want you to understand what is research. Research is generally we refer to research as a search for knowledge. So, but what is important is it is a scientific quest. It's not just simple interest. It is the scientific quest for certain information of a specific topic. So research, it could be historical research or economics research or political science research. Any research, there is a systematized method. In research, you follow a systematized method. You don't start with conclusions. You start with identification of the problem. That is common to any research. Even if you take research from any social science or any natural sciences, you start from identifying the problem. Then you will see what others have done in this particular issue and what others have done that. And after getting to know what others have done, then you will define your own problem and your own issue that you are going to pursue. Then you will start a data collection and you will analyze and all such things. So that procedure is same for, that methodology is same for any kind of research. So basically you will collect the data and formulate a hypothesis, analyze and reaching certain conclusions. But the only difference between historical research and other researches is the sources of material, how you collect the facts, what kind of material you collect, and how you formulate hypothesis. So these are the differences, but otherwise methodology remains the same. Techniques are different. Research techniques are different, but research methodology is same. So increasingly policymakers and research, they are calling for greater focus on research utilization. So research is not just for the sake of doing research. Research also has practical utility. So research is for the utilization by the policymakers. So research has the practical importance. So, and we will also know what is discipline. So discipline, as we all know, economics is a discipline, history is a discipline. So for a subject to be called as a discipline, you need certain characteristics. So it is a discipline has a close institutional order. Any discipline has a close institutional order, hierarchy, and it has its own professional standards, publication outlets, and education programs. For example, if you take your historical research, so there also you have your own professional standards. You also have your own publications, outlets, and you also have your own programs. So, and it also gives a scientist an identity. See, for example, historian, those who are doing research, they are historians. So it gives an identity, like an economist. So, and somebody doing agriculture economics, they are agriculture economists, environmental economists. So there is an identity which is with your research work. And each discipline is expressed through a certain set of norms and values. So you can't just do everything. You can't apply everything in every discipline. So each discipline has its own certain set of norms and values. And they are constructed on the basis of the field-specific reduction and the underlying assumptions of the reality. Because any research, certainly you will make certain assumptions, and from research you will prove or disprove those assumptions. So these are the characteristics of a discipline. So now we know what is meant by a research and what is meant by a discipline. So, and social sciences, in social sciences, of course, these are the disciplines, different disciplines in social sciences. So, social science, because this is prepared for social sciences. So what is the multidisciplinarity, what is transdisciplinarity, what is interdisciplinarity? So these are generally used terms when people are using it to bring in other disciplines into your own discipline. So what is the different forms? So how much integration has taken place between the disciplines? So I told you what are the characteristics of a discipline. Each discipline has its own norms. Each discipline has got its own areas. So, but how much that can be integrated in the other discipline? So that is what is the different forms of disciplinarity. So that is what is called intradisciplinary. So intradisciplinary is, it is only you will work within your discipline. So historical research, historiography, you collect only concepts, you use only concepts that are within your discipline. So that is what is called intradisciplinary research. But whereas multidisciplinary research is people from, this is multidisciplinary research. People from different disciplines work together, each drawing on their disciplinary knowledge. So disciplinary knowledge, for example, your historical research. Sima sir was also talking about archaeological research and how science people are contributing to archaeology. Archaeology is not what it was, Professor was telling. So similarly in history or in gender studies, so you bring in multidisciplinary research, people from different disciplines work together. In a multidisciplinary project, if some historical contributions or contributions of a particular sect of people or contributions of women writers, if somebody is working, so then you will need people with gender specialists, gender knowledge, and historians, and they will come together, and also linguistics. So they come together and they form into a multidisciplinary team. So this working together, and by working together, what happens is they draw from their own discipline, they bring in some new concepts. So that is multidisciplinary research. So multidisciplinary research, sometimes it may not be always possible to have a team of researchers to understand or to come together. But if the team is not there also, even individual researchers, as you are individual researchers, you can also bring in the concepts from other discipline. So from wherever it is appropriate, you can bring in the concepts from other disciplines, then it becomes what is called the multidisciplinary research. So cross-disciplinary is viewing one discipline from the perspective of another discipline. So here, you are viewing your discipline from the perspective of another discipline. Like for example, history, economic history. History is a discipline, but within that you are looking at from economics perspective. So how those economic events that have taken place, for example, starting with the 1930 Great Depression, and how these economic events have taken place, and that you are looking at the historical. It is history, it is economic history, but why you are looking at is the perspective is different. So for a historian, you will look at it a documentation of what has happened. But for an economist, he does it, he or she does it to find whether, if that processes will be repeating or not. If at all those processes repeat, so what is likely to be, to know that actually economists will be looking at the economic history. So that is what the cross-disciplinary research. And interdisciplinarity is integrating knowledge and methods from different disciplines using real synthesis of approaches. So in interdisciplinary research, what you do is you will completely integrate different disciplines, and you will use the methods and not only concepts but also methods, and bring out something which doesn't belong to either of these two disciplines. For example, gender studies, if you are looking at women writers and the contributions of women writers, or my grandfather has written about Sita in our Ramayana. So as a feminist, so like that, you in transdisciplinary research, what you do is you will when somebody integrates both the techniques, methods, and everything, something new comes out of that. So that is what is called the transdisciplinary research, and interdisciplinary research. But a transdisciplinary research, creating a unity of intellectual frameworks beyond the disciplinary perspectives. This is the highest order of what is called the transdisciplinary. So in transdisciplinary, you transcend from your own discipline to another discipline. So for example, gender specialists with a history background, historical research background, they bring in several things into the gender research, into into the perspective, into the gender studies. So what they do is they create a unity of intellectual framework. The new framework they will bring in. How you have to look at the writings of women writers. So that is what is called the transdisciplinary. So these are different. It is basically the degree how much you are integrating the other disciplines, that is the different forms of. But in my lecture presently, I am using interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary as a form of what is called the interchanging words. So the real difference between interdisciplinarity and transdisciplinarity lies on the diverse nature of research questions posed by these two different approaches. So anyway, I'm not spending much on this. And interdisciplinary studies is a process of answering a question. So now let us see what are the interdisciplinary studies, what they give us. So interdisciplinary studies is a process, it's a process of answering a question, solving a problem, or addressing a topic that is too broad or complex to be dealt with adequately by a single discipline or profession, and draws on disciplinary perspectives and integrates their insights through construction of a more comprehensive perspective. So this is what actually the definition is: advancing interdisciplinary studies. There, this definition is given by Klein and Nowell. So this clearly gives you what is meant by interdisciplinary studies. So interdisciplinary studies, because why we do research? We do research because there is a problem to be investigated, and there is a situation to be addressed, or there is a need to know more about any particular thing. So that is how we do research. But in interdisciplinary research, why we do interdisciplinary research is these problems are too complex. They are very broad and they are too complex. Because they are too complex, it is not possible to be addressed by only one profession. It is important to bring in the other professions, say other disciplines and other disciplinary perspectives. I can give you one example. I think most of you are familiar with self-help groups, which is a self-help movement, which uh, all over the country they started, and in Karnataka also we have Sri Shakti groups and all. So when these self-help groups have come about, so because of the female joining self-help group, it is not that she is getting benefited, the entire household is getting benefited. Not only the household, the entire community is getting benefited. So the community, in the sense that particular village, active self-help groups, they are doing several things. They are monitoring Sangha, they are monitoring Anganwadi, Sanghas, and several things they are doing. So those are also getting benefited by her participation in self-help group. So this is purely a question of how women are participating. It's a development issue. But how in economics we have another concept called what is called the externality. So in economics we call it as economic externalities. So externalities means externality is basically it is a gain or loss, a profit or loss, or the betterment of the situation or the worsening of the situation, anything positive or negative happening to the third party. So that we call it as externality. So I have used this concept of externality in gender studies. In gender studies, I have used this to understand the social externalities. By this girl, female participating in the self-help groups, I call it as social externality because her participation, the village is getting benefited, not in monetary terms. Positive externalities and economic externalities we measure in monetary terms. Whereas social externalities, you have other indicators to measure the social externalities. So that means, bringing in concepts from one discipline to another discipline makes the interdisciplinary studies as a process, and this helps in understanding the issues much better way. So multidisciplinary research is a pursuit of truth, of course. Multidisciplinary research is an investigation or inquiry into the problem for ascertaining the hypothesis, combining many academic approaches and field methods. Further, it can be defined as a research for knowledge through objective and systematic method for an original contribution to the existing stock of knowledge, and involving a combination of several discipline methods. This is very important for young researchers. As I told you, your minds are still fresh. You have got lots to contribute to research, and you have easy access to information material. How much research is, how much multidisciplinary research in history is taking place in the other countries. So here what I'm trying to stress on you is, it can be defined as a research for knowledge. By adopting multidisciplinary research, you are researching for knowledge through objective and systematic method for an organizational contribution. So by doing multidisciplinary research, you are going to contribute to the research of your own discipline, and by combining several disciplinary methods. So I know some of you are already doctorates, and some of you are doing, and some of you are going to take up research. So now I want you to think beyond your methodologies, and also integrate some other, wherever it is applicable from other disciplines, so that it becomes truly multidisciplinary. And a multidisciplinary approach to problem solving involves drawing appropriately from multiple disciplines to redefine problems outside the normal boundaries, and such solutions based on a new understanding of the complex situation. See, why multidisciplinary research is, because multidisciplinary research gives you an opportunity to look beyond your discipline. Like in history, you have your own discipline and you have your own research norms, and you have own concepts, your own what is called research methods, techniques, and all those things are there. But what multidisciplinary research experts is, you look beyond that. You look beyond and see how other disciplinary, the other discipline also can be brought into this method. So one of the barriers of multidisciplinary approach is the long established tradition of, I will come to this later. So multidisciplinary research is a technique of research, I already explained to you. So multidisciplinary research is needed to solve many, if not all, the next decade's major research challenges. So many academic institutions are largely organized in ways that promote advanced individual disciplines. So multidisciplinary research is also mainly promoted. So what this Malterberg and Bergstrom, what they argue is that multidisciplinary studies address current actual problems, focusing on solving them. It tends to be applied and action or policy oriented. Okay, I want to keep some time for our interaction, also more time for interaction. So why multidisciplinary research is important is the real world is not divided upon the same fashion as academic departments. See, whether your historical data or present data or combining historical data. So the issues are not strictly divided among the academic departments or disciplines. So that is why you need to have understanding of the other disciplines also. So what are the drivers towards interdisciplinary research? What are the drivers which promote interdisciplinary research is, one important promoter is inherent complexity of nature and society. You know, nature and society, geographic history, you have historical issues taking place across the geography. So, and if you want to know about a particular community, and you need to look at different areas. So the issues are very complex. So because of that, people are using multidisciplinary research or interdisciplinary research. So that is promoting interdisciplinary research. And next one is the drive for, hello? Sir, ಏನು ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು? ಸರಿ. ಕೇಳಿದೆ. Sir, mute ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ ನಿಮ್ದು. ಆಯ್ತು. Yeah. So the drive to explore basic research problem at the interface of discipline. This is also driving multidisciplinary research. So the drive, people want to explore from other discipline, what I can see, why we have this, what is called the choice-based credit system. Why US and several other Western universities, why they have so much choice? One fellow will be studying economics, simultaneously he will be also doing a course in philosophy. So history, archaeology, some study, you can also select your genetics and such subjects. So such kind of vast choices, it is what called cafeteria approach. So where you know you have absolute choice to choose your own discipline, what you want to study. So then, you know, if you have such opportunity, like, you know, in our good olden days, we have history, economics, political science, history, this. Athwa, what is called statistics, mathematics, and only these are structured things. But now it is not like that. So there is a drive to explore more research. That is why multidisciplinary research and interdisciplinary research is being promoted. And several of the universities in India also, we have this choice-based credit system, where a student studying economics can study also history, can also study history. And history students can take up economics, so that, you know, they will understand the concepts of different disciplines and integrate it. And next, what is driving is we need to solve the societal problems. As I told you, societal problems are very complex. You need interdisciplinary approach. And next thing is the stimulus of generative technologies. See, now technology has developed so much, because for this presentation, I was reading a lot about how computers are used in your historical research. So now so much technology has developed. So because of that also, more of interdisciplinary research is being promoted. And the same thing I have explained here. Nature, society's issues are so complex. So that is why you need to have some understanding of, for example, climate change. They are all multidisciplinary issues. See, for example, economists, for example, may focus on cost. I mean, if you are looking at climate change, economists will look at cost-effective mechanisms, whereas the sociologist would look at empowering the poor people and addressing the social inequality. So anthropologists, so they will look at about the social customs and practices which were existing, and the psychologists on the attitudes and responsibility. So like this, you know, the problem here is climate change. So we have to find solutions. So to find the solutions, it is important to bring in several disciplines, because the problem is multidimensional. when the problem is multidimensional, you need multidimensional approach. Say, for example, the same problem, economists will look at a cost-effective cost-effective mechanism, whereas sociologists would come with a suggestion to empower people to address the social issues. And whereas the anthropologist wants to look at the social customs and practices, how they are affecting the climate change. So similarly, different disciplines, they bring in different perspectives to the same problem so that the problem can be easily addressed. So X-rays and so I mean in several of the technology, that is what is called tools. So we know the tools that we have available to examine our world are most often transformational when drawn from outside discipline that develop them. So for example, computers is a technology and people are writing codes, so many things. So in US, there is a project, I'm coming to that, where they have written codes and lots of historical data is created as databases and which is accessible. And what are the drivers against interdisciplinary? So it is fine. We are all looking that multidisciplinary research is very good and all that. And there is so much of promotion and all that. But there are some drivers against interdisciplinary. It is not happening. So it is said easy. I can easily tell that you do multidisciplinary research, bring in some economic concepts, some this, that, and all. I can tell. But there are certain issues. There are certain problems in taking up multidisciplinary research. So one is the disciplinary structures of the university. Now only we are entering into this choice-based system and all, but still there is a disciplinary structures are there. Economics means economics. For sociology is sociology. So there is a very, very little kind of interaction and acceptance. Not only just interaction, there is acceptance. For example, when I started working on gender issues, people are telling that this is not an economic issue. Why it is not an economic issue? It is an economic issue. It is a so like because I applied some economic concepts in gender studies. So acceptance is like you are not working in economics field. That is the kind of rejection will be there. So disciplinary structures and disciplinary structure of academic education. So our education, as I told you, now only we are getting CBCS, but otherwise academic education is also very, very structured. Those who study history, only study history, they don't study about other things at higher education, not at graduation level, at higher education. And organization and funding of research. So earlier, the acceptance is very, very low for the multidisciplinary research. Now, of course, many of the funding agencies are promoting multidisciplinary research. But even here also, multidisciplinary research has got problems. See, for example, my ICSSR fellowship, right now my ICSSR fellowship is, I'm working on corporate social responsibility. I think all of you must have heard about India is the first country to make corporate social responsibility mandatory. So companies, certain companies, they have to spend 3% of their profits on corporate social responsibility. That is the issue. But what I am trying to understand in my research is, I am trying to see how cross-sector partnerships are developed. Because now companies are partnering with non-governmental organizations. Companies are partnering with communities. And companies are partnering with government in the implementation of the programs. And companies are also partnering with another companies also. So this kind of cross-sector partnerships, I call it as cross-sector partnerships, which was not there earlier. Earlier companies and NGOs are two enemies. Always NGOs used to criticize companies for polluting and exploitation and all such things. Now NGOs are depending on companies for the financial resources. And on the other hand, companies are depending on NGOs for identification of social problems. This is the issue. So when I submitted the proposal, okay, and in my interview, your methodology is weak, he said. What kind of methodology are you using? Because it is neither economics, of course, I also use economic concepts there, corporate social responsibility, return on investment, all such concepts I am using. But I am also using sociological concepts of these partnerships and benefits of partnership, social return on investment. So I had to explain. So acceptance is very, very difficult. And similarly, another thing, I organized one program on design for development, international program for the students. So that is what is called design for development. So that also, no, it took, it came 2, 3, 4 times, went back and forth from the organization, and several times, and I had to explain how it is a multidisciplinary thing. Because this design for development, any student can do that course. Any student from economics or technology, they can do this course. So I had to explain how it is multidisciplinary. So means, why I am telling all this is not to tell that I have done so many things, but how people look at it, how finding acceptance for the interdisciplinary proposals, that is also preventing many people from proposing. So some economics issue, okay, growth and growth of GDP, something like that. If you just write only economics, it gets quickly accepted. You don't have to break your head to convince people. So that is one thing. That is one which is working against the interdisciplinarity. And publication culture and peer review process. So publication culture also. So specific journals are there, economics journals are there. But now, of course, we do have several journals which are also promoting multidisciplinary research. Earlier, publications are also very, very difficult. And when it comes to your CAs, promotions and all, of course, fortunately in India, it is only numbers count where you publish 3 marks, 2 marks, 2 marks, 3 marks, like that. But certain cases where, when you're applying for a particular position or research position, they look at where did you publish. You published in core journals or which journals you have published, that also matters. So they are working against the multidisciplinarity. So the same thing I have explained here. And modern advances and application of methodological tools. So now technology has developed so much. So technology and interdisciplinary research have recently created the momentum. So we have so much technology being developed in which we use what is called the social network analysis, GIS, Geographic Information System. I think some of you must be using also. And there is automatic text analysis with online data collection. This is also possible. This text analysis, I think historical research also, you can use it. So these are a few things. There are many more such kind of technological and technology based based methodologies which are being used in different disciplines. This social network analysis, it investigates the relationship which connect individuals and other social entities. I think historical research, you people also can use this social network analysis of a particular period, modern history or whatever is particular period that you are looking at. Probably you can also use this social network analysis to understand what kind of networks have been developed. So earlier you were explaining descriptively, because history is more. You're right. I really salute historians, historical research, because you guys have to write, understand and write so much, and what comes out of that. And we people, economics people, we deal with numbers also speak, and we have to listen to the numbers and draw our inferences, whereas your inferences are based on what they have written, and from that you have to draw inferences. So this social network analysis, probably I feel that you can use, and those who are interested, you can go further to understand the social network analysis. And GIS. GIS also people are using in order to produce a map of a city illustrating. These are several applications using geographic information to generate a map. And I think for your historical research also, many people have used the geographical information system to locate the places in historical where you are likely to conduct more research. And text analysis. And the text analysis, probably it will be very, very useful for you. And content analysis or text analysis. How these tools may be used for content analysis is a comparison. See, there is one example that I have given here where the text analysis is used, Sarah Palin and speech of Barack Obama. So they actually looked at, means, why we do this text analysis or the content analysis is to understand, to draw some inferences, what their mind is. So based on what they speak. So that is the text analysis, and same thing, content analysis already given speech, you will analyze this speech, and how many times, for example, my own research, I'm using content analysis, or it is also text analysis. Why? Because in my research, how I am using is like corporate social responsibility. So my work is on corporate social responsibility, and companies are producing their corporate annual reports and social responsibility reports. So in social responsibility report, I'm looking at how many times companies have used the term called partnerships. Whether companies are looking at their NGOs as partners, they want to partner, because partnership has different meaning. In partnership, both the fellows will be contributing and the outcome is better. So whether they are looking at that way or not, that comes from their text. By analyzing the text, by analyzing the vision, mission, analyzing the text of the vision and mission of the company. So similarly, in your own historical research, probably text analysis can be, if it is already used, because my knowledge of your historical research is very, very limited. So if it is already being used, I'm very happy. Otherwise, you can think of contributing, see how text analysis can be used in your historical research. And what is historical research? Actually, it is, I'm really afraid of talking to you because you are already in the field. But, for the sake of continuity, I just want to talk about historical research, which is also known as historiography. So it attempts to systematically recapture the complex nuances, the people, meanings, events, and even ideas of the past that have influenced and shaped the present. So that is what actually historical research is, not just simply knowing about what our forefathers have done it, but what we can learn from that and understanding how they have shaped the present. So that is the connect between the history and the present contemporary world. So historical research involves careful study and analysis about the past events. So that I don't have to tell you. So it involves the review of written material, but may include oral documents as well. So, primary sources, I don't have to tell you what are your primary sources. And there are also secondary sources. And there is thin line between primary sources and secondary sources. Whereas in our studies, primary sources, we go and collect data, and secondary sources, we take already published material. In the case of historical research, primary sources and secondary sources, there is some thin line. So any research, as I told you, there are steps. This I have already told you about it. Any research will follow this, but of course, historical research also, you follow the same steps. And here the in historical research, determine the historical methods, and basically in historical research, questioning is very, very important. I think you know about it. Internal validity and external validity. So these two are the concepts which are used in your historical research. So identifying the questioning why, where, how, and you also finding out the internal validity and external validity of your your research issue. So now areas of historical research, where what kind of research is being done in historical research is, you basically studies about the events, periods, like time, like for example Chada period and such. I mean particularly this one, like or post independence or pre-independence or between Mughal emperor, so such kind of thing, that is specific period. And you also have a geographical location. So geographical location is for example history, economic history of Karnataka, something like that. So then you talk about only about the Karnataka and Karnataka, and also maybe you can also talk about economic history of Mysore district. So then you look at how the Odiyars have contributed and all such kind of things. So, but that is geographically to a particular area. And there is military history. This is also another area. So concentrates on study of conflicts. Actually, in I forgot, in some Western university there is a department itself for military research, because there are also important things And why it is important is why historical research is very, very important is the basic understanding is that what is happening today is not because of what has happened today itself. What is happening today is because something happened yesterday, day before yesterday, and much before that. So means it is not that just only what has happened yesterday is today is the result of what has happened yesterday. So it is the result of what has happened earlier. So unless until we have some knowledge about what has happened earlier, you will not be able to understand what is happening now and what is likely to happen. So in that sense, history is very, very, very important. People just say, oh, history. But history is there is also saying, if you forget your past, you are nothing. So like at the individual level or at the national level or at the global level, history is very, very important because that guides us and that shows us how the present situation has come about. The present situation has come about because of this. Sometimes I wonder how much we use history in our daily life also. See anything, oh, tell me the history. So his historical background I know, his history I know. We simply use without any giving much value to that. So I know that history, I know the history of that fellow, I know. So simply means, what it means, we are looking at why that fellow is behaving today, not because of his present behavior, it is because he has been like that. So, and because he has been like that, tomorrow also he is likely to be like that. May or may not, but likely to be like that. So that means, history has so much connection with it's not about the facts of past. It is about the connect between past and the present. So the present is because of the past. So understanding past is very, very important. But as a researcher, your skills lie in relating these two. See what we have learned from historical, like for example, in economics also we use a lot of historical data. Even when you see the databases on the internet also, they will give current data and then historical, they will say an icon will be there. So on historical, you will get some 20-year data, 30 years data, 40 years data, whatever it is. So that means, why we study about that historical data is based on that historic data, we predict what is likely to happen. So that is why history is very, very important. Understanding the historical background of any particular issue or any particular phenomena is very, very important because it is going to guide the future. So military history is also, basically this includes examining the wars, battles, military strategies and weaponry. So when I was studying my degree, I was so much excited about the European history. So in degree, we studied about European history, and that particular moment I wanted to study history also. I mean, specialize in history, but I came to economics. So why it is important to have multidisciplinary research in historical research is, history is the record of the past and movements, their causes and interrelations. Therefore, it requires techniques, concepts and tools of analysis from related disciplines to meaningfully document the occurrences and events of society being investigated. So it is so many issues are there. So to have a clear understanding of these things, you really need to use the techniques and concepts from other disciplines also. It is a record of past and movement and their causes. It's not just only recording, oh, this war took place, that war took. It's not that, but you also dig into why it has happened like this. So why this thing has happened like this, and what is the outcome of it? So all that you will investigate in your historical research. So that is why multidisciplinary research is very important in historical research. The interdisciplinary approach in history refers to the use of methods and techniques of two or more other disciplines in historical research. Yes, as I told you, multidisciplinary research is that. So historian's perspective is a very broad perspective. A historian cannot limit the scope of history. This is a holistic approach and establishes the relationship between the history and other disciplines of social sciences. It is also related to natural sciences. See, your historical research, that historical events, they happen not just like that, they did not happen. Like, for example, famine. So it is an event. It is a historical background is there. Why famine took place? Why Bengal famine took place? So from that, actually, Amartya Sen has looked at that. It is not the question of non-availability of food. It is the distributional issue. So that means, you document that, but you will also look at the relationship, how, and because of that understanding, so next further action can be taken or suggested. So interdisciplinary research in history represents historians' use of concepts and techniques developed by scholars in other disciplines. It is like any other interdisciplinary approach. So this it's a holistic approach. If you want to understand the entire thing about any specific issue or phenomena or event, it is important to have, for example, because I can only give examples from economics. I'm sorry. For example, if we are talking about poverty, in economics also we do use a lot of multidisciplinary research. See, poverty, we talk about poverty. Poverty means it's not just lack of money alone. It's not just, if you don't have money, you are poor. That is one dimension of poverty. But it has other dimensions. Because of poor, because you don't have money, what and all happens to you? What is your position in society? And what are the opportunities you have lost? And what are your capabilities? Whether your capabilities, you got an opportunity to express your capabilities, or what are your chances of choices? Whether you have a choice to get higher education or remain wherever you are. So all these are different dimensions of lack of money. So to capture the poverty, it's not just those who have money who do not have money, these are it's not like that. So to really capture the poor, so you really need to know what are the different dimensions. So then you bring in other concepts like psychological concepts we use, and we also use sociological concepts. We also use sociological methodologies, that is participant observation and qualitative research. So all that we bring in understanding what is poverty. So similarly, in the case of history also, historical research also, it is, if you want to have a clear understanding of the entire thing, whatever issue that you are studying, so you need to bring in other disciplines. So historical research, it's a holistic approach. Multidisciplinary thing is a holistic approach which brings in other disciplines. So it is represents historians' use of concepts. Okay. So contribution of other disciplines to historical writing. So historian, historian writing family or intellectual history takes a cue from psychology. When you are narrating any particular family or intellectual history, you just can't write two people are there, this happened, that happened, but you will also take some issues about the psychology, why they behaved like this. If this fellow killed brother, but why? There, you have to bring in psychology, psychological concepts and understanding why that killing has taken place. So the historians writing family or intellectual history takes cue from psychology. That is how psychological concepts are useful in multidisciplinary research in history. So then prehistoric writing was influenced by archaeology. So you need archaeological background to understand the prehistoric writings or to get anything out of your prehistoric writing. And political history is influenced by political science. So if you are writing political history, you need to be familiar with the concept that political science contributed. And also you need economic history. Economic history, so much is there. Some of the universities are offering courses on economic history. There are journals, economic history. So economic history is influenced by, of course, economics subject. And demographic history. So demographic history is, in demographic history, what you study is, you study about demography, population, different sizes, different age groups, and gender differences, and where and how, so, and what rate they are growing, and all those population related demographic history. So that is influenced by the sociology and sociological concepts. And similarly, ethnohistory or cultural history is influenced by anthropology, and genetic study was influenced by paleontology, and ecology influences environmental history. If you are writing environmental history, certainly you need to have some concepts of ecology. And so genetic study, paleontology is very, very important. So means, all these things, like If anybody is writing about environmental history, certainly they need to know the ecology. They need to know how the ecological, how ecology influences and how it has changed. So this is how actually why it is important to have multidisciplinary approach. So depending on whatever topic that you are selecting, depending on whatever issue that you are taking for research, you look for related what is discipline which is likely to be, then try to catch hold of some of the concepts. So those concepts will help you in writing your own history, your own thesis or your own publication. Because I understand my little knowledge about history is historical research is you have to read. You read lots of reading. So what is the topic? So then from that you draw conclusions. So to draw conclusions and to put it in, to draw what comes out of that, whatever historical background is there, to draw from that and relate it to the topic that you are doing, you certainly need the concepts. So ecology, so you select the discipline and try to catch hold of some of the concepts that are being used in that particular discipline. So why it is benefits of interdisciplinary research and interdisciplinary approach broadened and deepened the study of history. Of course, the interdisciplinary research has helped it. Now history is not just, earlier people used to tell, oh, history boring, why we need to know, but it is not at all like that. You should see the kind of research that is happening in America and European countries. So it brought new themes and ideas in historical writing. It extended the domains of history, multidisciplinary research. It elevated history from a mere narration of facts to a knowledge producing subject. That is what it is. So now history is not just a mere narration of facts, it is knowledge producing. See, for example, if somebody is doing research on education policy, certainly they have to look at history of what kind of education policies have come about and why, which area has been given importance and how it has affected. So it is very important to have knowledge about the education. So it brought philosophical concepts, theories and ideas to historical analysis, the multidisciplinary research. And it also brought new kinds of sources, methods and techniques. So now the kind of historical techniques, historical research techniques that you are using, or our generation, my contemporaries are using, they are much different. In fact, before taking the class, I did speak to some historians because I want to make sure that I'm not wrong. So I did speak to some historians. I spoke to contemporary historians and those who are retired before me also. So actually they have very little understanding of this multidisciplinarity. So they never bothered about understanding this multidisciplinarity concept is very recent. So now only the opportunity for you, because this is still virgin area where you can contribute, you can make an impact and on understand introducing new concepts into your discipline. So this multidisciplinarity has brought in new kinds of resources and methods and techniques, and interdisciplinary approach to history changed the course of historical writing and initiated the emergence of new branches in history. History is not European history or Chola history, not like that. Now history has got new branches. For example, in economics, we have new branches. Environmental economics was not there. Resource economics was not there when we studied. So now gender economics is not there. So these are new branches of economics, they are coming about. So similarly in history also you have so many new branches. So annals history of historiography. See, this annals school has actually brought in the multidisciplinary concept in history. That's what I studied, I understood. So this school, it is a French school, and these two were teaching in Sorbonne University. So they brought in this multidisciplinarity in this. So what the Annals School of French historiography led by these two researchers was based on the idea. The Annals School idea is that history must be wide open to the findings and methods of other disciplines, geography, economics, sociology, psychology, and at the same time must restrict the temptation to divide itself into number of specialisms. This is very important. each going its own independent way. See, in the what is called, when you should not be blinded by multidisciplinarity. So in the process of making it multidisciplinary, you should not completely forget the historical concepts, the concepts that are used in in history. So what these people have warned, it is good. Actually, another school actually brought in multidisciplinary concept to historical research. But at the same time, they also warned they also warned that they should the same time must resist the temptation. Resist the temptation to divide itself into a number of specialisms, economic history, history of ideas, etc., each going its own independent way. So means you should not dilute it too much. So dilute that your original history concepts should not disappear. So it is important to have, but at the same time means first time they spoke about widening the widening the what is called the walls of historical research and bring in other social sciences also into the historical historiography. So in modern context, interdisciplinary approach in history was well established by the works of this Annals school. So this Annals formally emerged with the foundation of the journal Annals Economic and Social History 1929. It emphasized the necessity and benefits of adopting themselves by breaking the disciplinary boundaries. So the first time they brought out that it is important to break the disciplinary boundaries. And also, actually, the historians such as these Bradel and George Dubé, and these are the people who have contributed. Many others contributed to the development of interdisciplinary approach. These are another school. So, how the development has taken place, how this interdisciplinary adoption has taken place is at the beginning stage. It primarily confined to social sciences. See, when enhanced school, how it has developed is initially they confined to social sciences. Historians adopted themes and concepts and techniques from sociology, economics. They are somewhat interrelated. So political science and anthropology, only those in the first beginning stage, they only confined to social sciences. But whereas in the second stage, historians began to use the techniques and methods of statistics and mathematics. Statistics and mathematics to a lesser degree. Quantitative analysis, as you see in economics now, you just can't publish a paper without any quantitative analysis. So means, second stage, these historians also brought in more quantitative techniques. In some of the research studies, they have used regression analysis, correlation analysis also in historical research, and charts, diagrams. That has come about in the second stage. In the later stage, historians have turned to the humanistic disciplines such as language studies, poetics, literary criticism, philosophy. Now, new theories and concepts like structuralism, new historicism, epistemology, ontology, all other things have come about. See, initially it was restricted only to social sciences, and second stage, quantitative techniques also are introduced in historical writing, and then third stage, it has gone beyond all other sciences also, all other languages, linguistic people, literacy criticism, literary criticism, all those things also have taken onto the historical research. So postmodern interventions, postmodern thinkers totally rejected the idea of disciplinary boundaries. So postmodern thinkers, not only in history, other areas also, they don't want to have disciplinary boundaries. They want to transgress into the other disciplines. And writings of postmodern thinkers exhibit this new turn of interdisciplinary studies. So these are some of the books, books like Madness and Civilization, The Birth of the Clinic, Discipline and Punish, The Birth of the Prison, and the History of Sexuality. Gives the best examples of new turn in the interdisciplinary approach. So those of you who are interested, you can also read some of this, and some of these things are available online. And Mysore University also subscribes to several databases. Maybe you can also access that. So one of the branches is cliodynamics. So this is a transdisciplinary area of research integrating cultural evolution, economic history, and also mathematical modeling. Cliodynamics treats history as a science. So its practitioners develop theories that explains such dynamical processes, because processes are certainly dynamic, they are not static. So they also have translated them into the mathematical models. So finally, model predictions are tested against data. So basically, cliodynamics is basically using the quantitative techniques and data for applying to the historical research. So International Institute of International Institute of Social History, it is there in Amsterdam, Netherlands. International Institute of Social Studies, where I was a visiting scholar, I visited this International Institute of Social History in Amsterdam. So there a lot of work on cliodynamics has taken place. So, and you also have recent times what is called the quantitative history. As I told you, after analysis, second stage is introduction of quantitative theories and quantitative methods. So quantitative history is an approach to historical research that makes use of quantitative, statistical, and computer tools. So they start with databases, and actually databases are also developed. So quantifiers move these are computerized databases, because depending on your area of interest, you can specifically look for more information on this quantitative history. Lots has been written about the quantitative history. There are journals. So leading journals in quantitative history is Historical Methods, started in 1967, Journal of Interdisciplinary History, 1968. Some of them are available on JSTOR. Some articles open up in JSTOR. I have seen it. And Cliodynamics, the Journal of Quantitative History and Cultural Evolution. This is very much devoted journal for the cliodynamics, where you will get data on different articles of research on history using the quantitative techniques. And also economic history. This is also another branch where multidisciplinarity is being used. Economic history is the academic study of economic events of the past. So it is using a combination of historical methods, statistical methods, and application of economic theory. In economic history, what we do is, what is being done is historical events are analyzed, but they are analyzed and applied to the existing situation those times. So here we use the statistical methods and also explain in terms of economic theory. So some of the theories have developed based on the historical events. So like for example, those stages of economic development based on economic history. So economic history has contributed a lot to the economic theories. So it emphasizes historicizing the economy itself, analyzing it as a dynamic force. So using both quantitative data and qualitative sources, economic historians emphasize understanding the historical context in which major economic events take place. That's what I have told. So historians, in economic history, they understand the major economic events in the historical context and attribute it to the socio-economic conditions. So, and we also have political history. In political history, it quantifies studies topics like voting behavior. What was the voting behavior? What is the voting behavior? And collective biography uses the standardized information on a large group to reduce patterns of thought and behavior. So basically, political history, they look at the political events and relate it to the socio-economic conditions. And then new social history. This is new social history, or new history also people call it as. It basically uses census data and other data sets. So here demographic history also, it is demographic issues such as population growth, birth, marriage, diseases. So all these migrations, all these are studied in new social history. This is also another branch of history. And archaeology history, I don't have to tell you. History and archaeology in our good olden days, I don't know now also. History, archaeology are one department only. In many universities it was, but I think now it is not. So archaeology, of course, is about the human past using scientific analysis and material domain. So the difference between them derives from the source material. Historians use written source material, where archaeology concentrates on the physical remains. So that is the difference between the this in archaeology and history. what is known concerning the development of man comes from archaeological findings. So archaeology supplies a chronological base or sequence useful for historical reconstruction, because based on the archaeological evidences, historical events are, history is constructed. So that is the association between archaeology, and certainly knowledge about archaeology is very, very important for historical research. And then geography. So geography focuses on human interaction with the physical environment. So history views human experience from the perspective of time, while geography views from perspective of space. So historians, while historical research, you will look at from the perspective of time, what has happened then, what is happening after 10 years or 20 years or 40 years or 200 years. You look at it as time space, whereas in geographic research, geographical area, same period, maybe 200 AC or DC or whatever is the period. So that particular period, what is the here in this continent, what is there in another continent. So that kind of geographical space you will study in geography. So study in every country is heavily influenced by its geography, and time and space factors give history its correct perspective. So it is not just only time, and space also important to understand the historical events and historical research. And economic history, I also told you about economic history. And new social history we have developed. Now these are called new social history or new history. So here we have historical demography, ethnic history, labor history, women's history, gender history, so many branches, so many applications rather of the basic science of history. So we in ethnic history you study about ethnic groups, and labor history certainly you need knowledge about labor conditions, and also you need to have some knowledge about human resource. Actually, I was reading in one article while I'm preparing for you people. There, one researcher, some researchers actually, they have estimated in labor history, they have estimated, while writing the labor history, they estimated what is the cost of employing a slave, how much the employers of slaves are gaining, how much they are earning, that they have depending on what they paid and how much they employed and all that. They have even calculated what is the surplus that these people have generated, not now, in at times when the slavery was there. So that is how actually labor history are using the concepts of economics, from economics. And of course, women's history and gender history both use a lot of concepts from gender studies. And in women's history, we basically talk about it uses the women's history to understand the experiences of ordinary women. Whereas in gender history, we talk about both men and women. So anytime you are talking about gender, means you are talking about both men and women. In gender history, you bring in lot of gender concepts and discourses, and it is the experience of femininity and masculinity as they develop over time. So there are good contributors, what is called Jadavpur University, the gender studies, they have done a lot of things on history, gender history. So after it was this one, gender a useful category, as actually gender history gained prominence after it was conceptualized in 86, not very long ago. Only in 86, John Scott in her article, Gender, a Useful Category of Historical Analysis. So many social historians use Scott's concept of perceived differences. So this also, they have used a concept called perceived differences to study the, means, the gender relations, because gender relations are very complex to understand. So some of the concepts of gender studies are important when you are looking at the gender history. And you also have a branch called urban history and rural history. So in urban history, new urban history, it was developed in Britain and then of course in US, and it looked at the city as a process, because cities when they develop, it is a process, it's a dynamic thing. So when in the process, many things would have taken place. So using quantitative methods, they understood about the urban history, a major early study was Stephen Thurstone's Poverty and Progress, Social Mobility in 19th century. So, and rural history is about focusing on history of societies. And here also you use a lot of sociological concepts and also agriculture history. Even in rural history, there is what is called agriculture history. There is a journal for exclusively for agricultural history. There are publications I've seen.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah.
So sorry to interrupt. Time is running out. It's 11:15.
11:15.
So
11:30.
yes.
Yeah, 11:30. 11:15. Sorry, no, 11:30. Last one minute, I will complete this sum. I was under the impression that it is 11:30.